The light was so intense that it should have blinded me, yet I could see everything with a perfect clarity I had never experienced in my 58 years of life. 3 beings of light stood before me. Their presence radiated a love so pure it moved me to tears, but there was also something else in their luminous faces that terrified me, a profound sadness. "Why are you sad?" I asked in a trembling voice. The being in the center, brighter and more powerful than the other 2, approached me. When he spoke, his voice resonated through every fiber of my spiritual being. "Because we are going to show you what 98% of Christians do completely wrong when fasting. And when you return, Idilma, very few will believe you." In that moment, I realized something that made my soul tremble. I was dead. But before I go on, let me ask you something. Please leave a comment telling me which country you are listening from. I would love to know where you are and feel closer to you, even though we are physically apart. And if this testimony touches your heart, don't forget to like it so that more people can hear what Jesus revealed to me about fasting. Now, let's continue with this experience that changed my life forever. My name is Idilma Constanza Perez. I am 58 years old and live in Tarija, Bolivia, a small city surrounded by vineyards and mountains in the south of the country. For 32 years, I have served the Lord with all my heart. My husband, Fermin, and I pastor a congregation of 73 people in the Sunroque neighborhood. It is neither a large nor a famous church, but every soul that walks through those doors is precious to us. My life had always been one of prayer and a constant seeking of God. I fasted regularly at least once a month, sometimes more. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I knew the secrets of fasting, but Jesus was about to show me that everything I believed I knew was merely a tiny fraction of the truth. The reason I had undertaken this 3-day fast was very specific and deeply personal. My youngest son, Gaston Esquiel, had just graduated as a lawyer from the Juan Misael Saracho Autonomous University after 6 years of hard work and sacrifice. He had reached the final stage of the selection process for a position at a prestigious international law firm in Miami, USA. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, the dream he had pursued since childhood. As a mother, I burned with the desire to see my son achieve that dream, so I decided to fast for 3 days, praying specifically for God to open that door and for Gaston to be selected. It was the end of my 2nd day of fasting. The date was April 23, 2024. It was approximately 9:40 p.m. Fermin was in the living room watching the news, while I had shut myself away in our small prayer room, a space we had set up in what used to be a storage room. I was on my knees with my Bible open to Isaiah chapter 58, that beautiful passage about the fast that pleases God. I had been praying fervently for about 40 minutes, crying out for my son, when suddenly I felt a strange dizziness. At first, I thought it was hunger after all. I hadn't eaten in nearly 48 hours, but then an intense wave of nausea hit me, doubling me over. I tried to get up to leave the room, but then I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if someone were squeezing my heart with an iron fist. "Fermin," I tried to shout, but my voice came out as nothing more than a choked whisper. The pain intensified brutally. I fell sideways onto the prayer rug, struggling to breathe. My right hand clutched the edge of the table where my Bible rested, knocking it to the floor. The heavy book hitting the wooden floor alerted my husband. I heard his footsteps running down the hallway. I saw the door fly open. I saw Fermin's face shift from confusion to sheer terror when he saw me on the floor, my lips already turning blue. "Idilma, Idilma, my love, what's wrong?" he cried out as he knelt beside me. I tried to answer him. I tried to tell him my chest hurt, but the words wouldn't come. The world began to darken at the edges, as if someone were slowly drawing black curtains shut. The last thing I saw in the physical world was Fermin shouting my name while desperately dialing emergency services on his cell phone. The last thing I felt was his trembling hands lifting me off the floor, and then, everything stopped. My heart ceased to beat. The transition was instantaneous. There was no period of gradual unconsciousness. 1 second I was in agony on the floor of my prayer room, and the next, I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at my own lifeless body in my husband's arms. It was the strangest sensation I had ever experienced. I could see Furman weeping, shaking me, and shouting my name, yet I felt no pain. In fact, I felt more alive, more aware, and more real than ever before. I watched as the paramedics arrived barely 7 minutes later. Though time had begun to behave very strangely for me, I saw them carry me out of the house on a stretcher. I saw my husband climb into the ambulance, still wearing his slippers and without even putting on a jacket, despite the chill of the Tyrian night. But then, something extraordinary happened. I felt a force not physical, but spiritual pulling me upward. I no longer saw the ambulance racing through the streets of Tyre towards San Juan de Dios Hospital. Instead, I found myself being lifted through what I can only describe as a tunnel of living light. This tunnel was not merely an empty, illuminated space, as many describe it. It was as if it were made of millions of particles of light that breathed, sang, and vibrated with a life of their own. The colors I saw do not exist on Earth. I have spent months searching for words to describe them, but our language has no names for those shades of glory. As I ascended through this tunnel, I heard something that sounded like music, yet it was far more than music. It was as if the entire universe were worshipping in perfect harmony. I could distinguish voices, thousands, millions of voices singing in a language I did not know, yet somehow understood perfectly. And then, I emerged, the tunnel opened up, and I found myself standing in a place I can only describe as the outer gates of heaven. The beauty was so overwhelming that I fell to my knees, sobbing with pure joy and awe. That was where I saw them. The three beings of light I mentioned earlier were standing before me, waiting for me, as if they had known exactly when I would arrive. The being in the center stepped forward, and in that moment, I knew with every fiber of my spiritual being who he was. I didn't need to be told, I didn't need an introduction. His presence proclaimed it all. It was Jesus, but not like the paintings I had seen in churches. He wasn't a pale, blue-eyed man in a white robe. Jesus radiated a light that contained every color and none at the same time. His eyes were deep wells of love so pure that I felt he knew me completely, every secret, every flaw, every struggle, and yet, he loved me unconditionally. Edelma, he said, speaking my name, and it was as if the entire universe paused to listen. I have brought you here for a very specific reason. What you are about to see will change everything you thought you knew about fasting. He extended his hand toward me, and when I took it, I felt a surge of love so powerful it brought me to tears. And then, suddenly, we were no longer alone in that glorious place. Jesus showed me something that took my breath away. Suddenly, I could see the earth from a heavenly perspective. It wasn't like viewing a planet from space. It was like seeing the spiritual layers covering the physical world. Look, Jesus said, pointing downward. I saw millions of threads of golden light stretching from the earth toward the heavens. Some were brilliant and strong, like cables of luminous steel. Others were faint, almost transparent, flickering as if about to go out. Each of these threads, Jesus explained, represents someone currently fasting on earth. But look more closely, Edelma. Do you notice anything? I observed more carefully, and then I saw it. Most of the threads, perhaps 98 out of 100, had something strange about them. They appeared blocked, as if not-so barriers were preventing the light from flowing fully from earth to heaven. What are those barriers, Lord? I asked. Jesus' expression turned serious, almost sad. They are misunderstandings, wrong motives, and misguided practices. Most of my children fast, Edelma, but 98% do so in a way that blocks the full power of what fasting can achieve. He showed me one of the most obstructed threads. Just by looking at it, I could suddenly see the person connected to it. It was a woman somewhere in Latin America, kneeling in her home and fasting. But as she fasted, her mind was filled with thoughts of pride. She was telling everyone on social media about her fast, seeking the admiration of others. Look at her fast, Jesus said sadly. It has form but no power, it has appearance but no substance. She is fasting to be seen by people, not to seek me. Then he showed me another thread, this one completely filled with dark knots. I saw a man who was fasting, yet he held bitterness in his heart toward his brother. His fast was like a broken bridge, unable to truly connect with heaven, because resentment blocked the flow. Edelma, Jesus said, looking me straight in the eye, I am going to show you the truth about fasting that 98% of Christians are unaware of. And when you see it, you will understand why I brought you here instead of letting you go straight to the Father. But what Jesus showed me next would shake the very foundations of everything I thought I knew about this spiritual practice. Jesus extended his hand again, and the spiritual landscape I was viewing changed completely. Suddenly, I found myself in what appeared to be a gigantic hall made entirely of crystalline light. The walls, if they could even be called that, displayed scenes from various moments in biblical history. Before I continue with what I saw, I need to ask you something important. If this testimony is touching your heart, please leave a comment telling me what has impacted you the most so far. And if you know someone who needs to hear this truth about fasting, please share this video. Everyone who watches it could be transformed by what Jesus revealed to me. Now, let's go on, because what comes next is even more powerful. Look at this, Jesus said, and one of the walls began to show a scene I recognized immediately. It was the prophet Daniel in Babylon, but I wasn't seeing him the way you do when reading the Bible. I was seeing him from a heavenly perspective, observing both the physical and spiritual worlds simultaneously. I saw Daniel in his room, on his knees, fasting and praying, but what took my breath away was what was happening in the spiritual realm while he fasted. Something extraordinary occurred on each day of his fast. It was as if portals were opening in the spiritual heavens. I saw angelic beings who had been blocked by dark forces suddenly set free to move. Do you see, Edelma? Jesus explained to me. Daniel's fast wasn't just about abstaining from food. Look at his heart. And then I could see into Daniel's spiritual interior. His fast did not stem from a place of religious pride, nor from an attempt to impress God. It came from a place of deep humility, of genuine brokenness, born of a desperate hunger to understand the times in which he lived. This is the first truth you must grasp, Jesus said, his voice resonating with divine authority. Fasting is not a tool to persuade me to do something I do not wish to do. Fasting is a key that opens your spirit, tuning you into what I am already doing. Daniel fasted to align himself with my will, not to change my will. I saw how Daniel's fasting created what appeared to be a spiritual force field around him. The enemy's lies, which might otherwise have confused him, bounced off this field, unable to penetrate it. His discernment grew sharper with each day of fasting. Then, the scene shifted, and I saw something that moved me to tears. Jesus showed me millions of modern-day Christians fasting, yet the vast majority did so with a completely misguided mindset. I saw them fasting while they thought things like, if I fast for 3 days, God has to give me what I ask for, or my fast will force God to move that mountain. Do you see the problem? Jesus asked, with sadness in his voice. They are trying to use fasting as leverage to manipulate me, as if it were a business deal. I give you 3 days without food, you give me the job I want, but that is not the nature of the fast I established. Then he showed me something surprising. I saw my own fast, the one I had been undertaking for my son, Gaston. I saw how it had begun with punitives, with a genuine desire to seek God, but then I saw how my focus had gradually shifted. I had started to view fasting as a way to pressure God into doing what I wanted for my son. Don't misunderstand me, Edelma, Jesus said tenderly. Your love for your son is beautiful, and I care about the desires of your heart, but fasting is not about forcing results. Fasting is for purifying your desires until they align with mine. Then he led me to another revelation that left me completely astonished. The scene shifted, and I saw Moses on Mount Sinai during his 40-day fast, but what I saw was radically different from what I had imagined all my life. I saw how each day of Moses' fast literally transformed his spiritual capacity. It was like watching someone exercise a spiritual muscle that was growing stronger and stronger. By the 10th day of the fast, Moses could perceive things in the spiritual realm that he could not see on the first day. By the 20th day, His spirit had expanded to such an extent that it could contain revelations that would have destroyed an unprepared person. This is the second crucial truth, Jesus explained. Prolonged fasting with the right heart literally expands your spiritual capacity. It creates space in your soul for me to reveal deeper things. But 98% of my children fast for immediate, external benefits, without understanding that the greatest benefit of fasting is internal. I saw how Moses' fasting had created a larger spiritual vessel within him. When God spoke to him and gave him the law, Moses had the capacity to receive it because his fasting had prepared his spirit to contain it. Many of my children ask me for great revelations, Jesus continued, but they are not willing to pay the price of fasting that would prepare their spirits to receive them. It is like trying to fill a small cup with the contents of an ocean. Then he showed me something that broke my heart. I saw corporate fasts in churches around the world, but in most of them, I saw people fasting while harboring resentment toward one another in their hearts. I saw leaders fasting while harboring secret jealousy against other ministers. I saw entire congregations fasting while gossiping about each other in their WhatsApp groups. Fasting without love is spiritual noise, Jesus said with deep sadness. They may abstain from food for 40 days, but if there is hatred, envy, or unforgiveness in their hearts, their fasts do not penetrate the first heaven. The fourth revelation he showed me concerned fasting and spiritual warfare. I saw scenes of believers fasting and praying, and I observed from a heavenly perspective how this affected the kingdom of darkness. When someone fasted with genuine humility and a pure heart, I saw demonic strongholds literally cracking. It was like watching dark spiritual buildings begin to crumble. Demons that had been comfortably entrenched in certain areas for years were suddenly forced to retreat. But here was the surprising part: the power did not come from the physical act of not eating, it came from what the fasting produced in the person's heart. Fasting broke pride, fasting silenced the flesh. Fasting sharpened the spirit to hear God's voice more clearly. Look closely at this, Jesus said to me, showing me two people fasting at the same time. One was a humble woman in a small Central American village who was fasting in secret, telling no one and weeping before me for her family's salvation. The other was a man at a megachurch who had publicly announced his 40-day fast and live-streamed his prayers daily to gain followers. The humble woman's spiritual thread was like a beam or pure golden light that pierced through the heavens and reached directly to God's throne. The man's thread was opaque, blocked by layers of spiritual pride, barely rising above his church's roof. The fifth truth I want you to understand, Jesus said, is that true fasting is always a matter of the heart first, and practice second. You can have the perfect practice, but if your heart is not right, your fast has no power. Then Jesus showed me something that terrified me. He took me to see the near future times that are coming upon the earth. I saw periods of great spiritual darkness, moments when the forces of evil would intensify in ways most Christians are unprepared to face. Edelma, listen to me very carefully, Jesus said, and his tone became more urgent. In the times ahead, those who do not understand the true power of biblical fasting will be spiritually vulnerable. The battles looming on the horizon cannot be won through casual prayer alone. They will require my children to learn how to combine prayer with the right kind of fasting. I saw scenes of believers facing incredible pressures, temptations more subtle and powerful than ever before. I saw how those who had learned to fast correctly possessed a spiritual strength that sustained them. They had mental clarity when others were confused. They had peace when others panicked. They had discernment when others were deceived. I am not showing you this to frighten you, Jesus said. I am showing you so that, upon your return, you may warn my people. The time for playing at religion is coming to an end. I need my church to understand fasting as I designed it, not as religious tradition has distorted it. He showed me how, in the coming years, there would be an urgent call for corporate fasts. I saw how these fasts, when conducted correctly, would create massive spiritual breakthroughs capable of changing the course of entire nations. But Jesus was not finished yet. What he showed me next regarding how to prepare for what is to come was the most practical and powerful revelation of all. Jesus took both my hands and looked at me with an intensity that pierced to the very depths of my being. Time in that heavenly place seemed to stand still, as if the entire universe were holding its breath to hear what he was about to tell me. Idolma, what I am about to reveal to you must be shared with exactness when you return, he said, his voice filled with both divine authority and tenderness. These are the specific instructions I want my people to understand regarding proper fasting. Before proceeding with these vital instructions Jesus gave me, I need you to do something. Pause this video for a moment and type the word ready in the comments. That will tell me you are committed to listening until the end and applying what Jesus revealed, because what follows can completely transform your prayer and fasting life. Now, here is what the Lord instructed me. First, Jesus began, tell them that true fasting must always begin with an examination of the heart. Before they stop eating, they must stop sinning. Before sacrificing food, they must sacrifice pride, bitterness, and unforgiveness. A fast that begins with a heart full of spiritual rubbish is like trying to fill a dirty vessel with pure water. He showed me visually how this heart examination should take place. I saw people, before beginning their fasts, taking time to reconcile with those they had offended, asking for forgiveness where necessary, and letting go of resentments they had carried for years. Second, he continued, fasting must have a specific purpose aligned with my will as revealed in the scriptures. Do not fast to manipulate or pressure me, fast to seek my face, to gain clarity regarding my will, to strengthen your spirit against the enemy's schemes, or to intercede for others with greater power. Jesus explained that when we fast with selfish or manipulative motives, it is like knocking on the wrong door. We might knock very hard and for a long time, but it will never open because it is not the right door. Third, and this is crucial, he emphasized during the fast, you must increase the time spent in my word and in worship. Fasting is not merely abstaining from food, it is filling the space food once occupied with more of me. If you fast but do not read the scriptures, if you fast but do not worship, you are missing out on 50% of the power of fasting. He showed me how fasting, combined with deep immersion in the Word of God, created a kind of high-octane spiritual fuel. I saw how biblical truths penetrated more deeply into the spirits of those who read them while fasting. Fourth, Jesus added, fasting must be accompanied by acts of mercy and justice. Isaiah 58 states this clearly, the fast I choose is to loose the bonds of wickedness, share your bread with the hungry, and clothe the naked. You cannot fast while ignoring the needs of others, that is religious hypocrisy. Then, Jesus gave me a serious warning that made my spirit tremble. In the times to come, there will be signs, specific signs that will confirm whether they are fasting correctly. If they fast as I have taught you, they will see three things manifest in their lives. The first sign, supernatural clarity in moments of confusion, when others are lost, unsure of what decision to make. Those who fast correctly will receive clear discernment from my spirit. The second sign, spiritual strength amidst attacks. Temptations that once brought you down will no longer hold the same power over you. You will possess a spiritual resilience you did not have before. The third sign, tangible fruit in the areas for which you have been interceding. It will not always be immediate, but you will see movement where there was once stagnation. You will see doors open where there were once walls. Suddenly, I felt a powerful tug, as if an invisible rope tied to my spiritual being were pulling me backward. Jesus' face revealed a mixture of love and urgency. It is time for you to return, Idolma, he said, but remember every word I have spoken to you. Your son Gaston will be fine, for I am watching over him, but your true mission now is to carry this message to my people. 98% are fasting incorrectly, and they need to know the truth. How long have I been here, Lord? I asked, for I felt as though hours or perhaps days had passed. On earth? Jesus replied with a faint smile, 22 minutes have passed since your heart stopped. But time does not work here the way it does there. I have shown you what you needed to see. Then, everything began to fade, the glorious light, the celestial beings, Jesus' face. It all started to recede as I was pulled back through the tunnel of light. The next moment I clearly recall was hearing voices shouting in Spanish, "We have a pulse! We have a pulse! She's coming back!" I opened my eyes and saw the bright overhead lights of the San Juan de Dios Hospital emergency room. There were faces of doctors and nurses looking down at me with expressions of absolute shock. One of the doctors, Drive, Villarreal, was standing beside my gurney with his hands still on the defibrillator paddles, his mouth open in disbelief. "This is impossible," a young nurse murmured. I had been dead for 22 minutes. 22 minutes without oxygen. I should have suffered massive brain damage or been in a vegetative state, yet I was completely lucid. More than that, I felt mentally clearer than ever before in my life. I turned my head and saw Fermin in the corner of the room, weeping uncontrollably, his hands covering his face. "Fermin," I said, and my voice sounded surprisingly strong and clear. My husband ran to me, took my hand, and began kissing it over and over, sobbing words of thanksgiving to God. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of medical tests. The doctors could not explain what had happened. They performed MRIs, electroencephalograms, and exhaustive cardiac tests. Everything came back completely normal. There was no brain damage, no lasting effects. It was as if my body had been completely restored. Drive, Villarreal, a man of about 65 with 40 years of medical experience, came to my room on the afternoon of the 3rd day. He sat in the chair beside my bed and looked at me with a mixture of scientific amazement and spiritual curiosity. "Mrs. Edelmer," he said slowly, "in 4 decades of practicing medicine, I have never seen anything like this. You were clinically dead for 22 minutes. Your brain received no oxygen during that entire time. According to everything I know about medicine, you should be dead or in a deep coma, yet here you are, speaking and thinking clearly, without any neurological after effects. This defies all medical explanation." He paused and then asked, "What happened to you while you were on the other side?" That was when I began to share, for the first time, what Jesus had revealed to me about fasting. Drive, Villarreal listened with tears streaming down his face. When I finished, he simply said, "This is a miracle from God. There is no other explanation." 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, I received a call from my son Gaston. He was weeping with joy. He had received the notification. He had been selected for the position at the Miami law firm. But the most beautiful part was what he said next. "Mom, I don't know what happened, but I feel that God has a greater plan in all of this, not just for my career, but for our family." He was right. God did have a greater plan, and that plan included me sharing this message with the world. Now it is your turn to decide what you will do with this truth. Will you continue fasting like the 98% who do it incorrectly? Or will you apply what Jesus revealed to me? Do not let this message pass by without impacting your life. If you feel God's call to begin fasting correctly, write the exact date you will start your next fast in the comments, following the instructions Jesus gave me. Make it public, commit yourself. Time is short, spiritual battles are intensifying, and God is calling His people to rise up with the true power of biblical fasting. Do not be part of the 98% who do it wrong. Be part of the 2% who understand the truth and walk in it. Jesus sent me back with this urgent message, and now I have delivered it to you. May the Holy Spirit confirm in your heart that every word of this testimony is true, and may He give you the courage to act upon it.